when you go into a hair loss treatment, you need to know whatever you're doing is going to have to be done forever. When you don't even know what type of hair loss you're dealing with, it is, to me, a mistake for sure to just start treating your hair loss. Know that anything that can possibly help you grow hair and treat your hair loss can actually make it fall out. This is one of the subjects where I feel I screwed myself over. Okay. I cannot really see how my wig looks. So today I want to talk about treating your hair loss, whether or not you should treat your hair loss. And I can't tell you whether you should treat your hair loss, but what I can do is let you know certain things you should know about before you make that decision for yourself. Things that I kind of didn't think about for myself, and things I still think that people are not considering when making this very important decision for themselves, or not always making educated decisions. Oftentimes people are just buying things online, they don't even know what they're taking, and they don't even realize that it has the potential to actually make their hair loss worse. I have a video on here on YouTube on saw palmetto, which is an ingredient often thrown into a lot of supplements for hair loss. That's not a supplement that should be taken lightly. I don't think any supplement or any medication should be taken lightly, but that could definitely cause an increase in shedding for some women, or it may not, or it may help, but all of these things are still true. Here's a universal truth. Well, here's my universal truth. As it pertains to treating your hair loss, you're not going to find, in my opinion, the hair loss treatment that is going to truly help you in the scroll. What I mean is that it's not going to be on social media. There are legitimate treatments for women's hair loss. I don't think any of them are, super fabulous. I think they have men's hair loss more understood than women's hair loss, but there are treatments. Treatments often used are aldactone, which I did take at 200 milligrams because I was told that's the only dose that would be effective. The generic form is spironolactone, minoxidil, topical, which is Rogaine. If you're not going to have a child or are past childbearing years, some people will prescribe finasteride, Propecia, but you cannot be getting pregnant while on that medication. Now oral minoxidil, PRP therapy, I've done all of these. And in many cases, they also put women on birth control pills that are quote unquote hair friendly, even though I don't actually think there is a hair friendly pill. That's just my opinion. I'm truly probably biased on this, but the birth control pill is what kicked in my hair loss, my genetic predisposition, and then I desperately went back on it, and I regretted that because I felt stuck on it. These are legitimate treatments. I'm naming legitimate treatments for women's hair loss. As it pertains to all of these treatments, you can find somebody that will tell you that it did absolutely nothing. It helped them to a so-so degree, maybe not enough to justify going on, or you have some people that feel they truly got benefit from all of these things. I'm not sure about the birth control one though, as far as the benefit factor, but the other ones I know that some people are kind of ranging between did nothing, did something but not enough to continue, or I got some measurable result that I want to continue. And then when it comes to something like PRP, your results have to kind of justify the cost because that's definitely a more expensive treatment and it has to be ongoing. So when you go into a hair loss treatment, you need to know whatever you're doing is going to have to be done forever. There is no 6-month plan. There is no 8-month plan. There's no 2-year plan. A treatment for hair loss is a treatment for life. You're committing to do that for life. If you stop, you will lose if you got any benefits from it, you will lose those results. It's not going to be retained. So there's no 6 months and you're done. This is something forever. It's important to know that anything that can possibly help you grow hair and treat your hair loss can actually make it fall out. So it also has the potential to make it worse. That is true for any hair loss medication that has the legitimate possibility to actually have efficacy in this process. If it doesn't have the potential to have efficacy, then most likely it probably isn't going to do anything either way. I don't think people know that. I don't think people know that when treating their hair loss, they could actually make it worse. A lot of cases, it's supposed to be, and I say supposed to in quotations because, we never know how we're going to respond, but it's supposed to be that it will balance out later. Like even if you get a dread shed, the cycle of the hair should stabilize and then you should be technically in a better spot than you were. But that's not always the case for people. Some people find that they got worse from taking the medication and they didn't recover. They just lived in the worst state. The other thing that happens, I should say, and it happened to me, that's why I was stuck on aldactone 200 milligrams. And I say stuck because I truly felt stuck on it for 13 years, is that when you go on a medication, it can cause shedding. When you come off a medication, it can cause shedding. And I had no way to know if it was actually doing anything because I didn't know how it would have been had I not been taking it, but I know that I was progressing the whole way through. So I knew my hair loss was progressing the whole way through with aldactone, 200 milligrams, and getting on the birth control pill, orthotricycline, to treat, again, air quotes there, my hair loss. Did it do anything? I don't know. I don't know what I would have been without it. But I didn't have the ability to actually even get off of these medications until I started wearing wigs in 2012. Then I felt like whatever shed I went through, I would be able to kind of endure it. I also structured it around PRP treatments that I felt helped to reduce the shedding possibility for me. Again, PRP is not for everybody, and not all PRP is created equal. I do think it's a cash cow, and people do it that don't know what they're doing and, just taking people's money. And even in the most capable hands, it's still not going to work for everybody. That's just a thing. I did find it beneficial, PRP. I did it from 2009 up until 2023, flying every 4 to 5 months from Los Angeles to Florida, from 2009 to 2023 January. That's a lot of investment and time and emotional labor. So of course I thought it was beneficial, but it didn't grow my hair back like to the point where I didn't need wigs. So if you follow the timeline, 2009 I started PRP, but I started wearing wigs in 2012. But I felt like all of that kind of worked together. I don't want to get too far off track, but like I had my system, my short hair, my PRP, my wigs. I had my flow. I got off the aldactone. I got off the orthotricycline. I had my way to live with this. That's what we're all trying to do, find our way to live with this. But if you're at the beginning stages of this, or maybe not at the beginning stages, and you are considering treatment, you need to know what you are taking. And when you're considering a hair loss treatment, I think it's really important to not just think about today, not just think about tomorrow. You need to make the decision that you can live with basically 10 years from now. And that's what I didn't do for myself. Did I make the decision when I got on the birth control pill, or aldactone for the matter, did I want to be on that medication 10 years from now? Would I be okay with that? What if I wanted to have a child? How is this going to factor into it? You'd have to be like, well, I'm going to get off the medication and then all my hair is going to fall out. Then I'm going to be mentally messed up in the head. And how am I going to be able to have a baby? And all these things you're not thinking about on day one, because 10 years, especially when you're young, and my hair loss began at 21, 10 years is a lifetime. But that time, if we're lucky, will come to surface and we will be now 10 years from now. And what decisions will we have made for ourselves to put ourselves in the best possible position? I didn't really think about that and think about what I could live with. I didn't make the decision I could live with. So I felt regret. I felt regret for getting on aldactone. I felt regret for getting back on the birth control pill, and I felt trapped. I did do Rogaine. However, I didn't really feel like it did anything for me, topical Rogaine, and left me kind of like between that and Propecia. I took that also initially at 20. I took it at 22. I started treating my hair loss at age 22. Hair loss began at 21. I didn't feel like the Propecia did anything for me, and I didn't feel like the topical minoxidil did anything for me. So I got off those in pretty short order, and I didn't feel like psychologically messed up by that. Like it didn't like leave a mark on me, because it didn't really affect the longevity of like what I was living with day in and day out. I couldn't even switch my birth control pill. I was scared switching the pill would cause hair loss. I'm taking aldactone. Spironolactone is a blood pressure pill, and I didn't need a blood pressure pill. I'm taking a high dosage of it because I was told it had to be that dosage. People take all varying dosages, by the way, and so that may or may not have been true. I felt terrible that this was occurring. So while my hair is falling out, and while I'm living in hair loss, and while I'm suffering, and while I'm just gutted and sitting on the floor crying of my shower, I'm still doing all of that while stuck on these medications that I didn't want to take. So that's why I feel like I didn't make the best choice for myself in that regard, and thinking about it going forward. I also had no perspective. I didn't have a baseline of if those medications helped, because I started treating my hair loss very early. Like, that's the other thing I regret. It's not that you need to wait forever to treat your hair loss. I just think that I jumped the gun, primarily with the birth control pill, which honestly I would never do again. If I could do it over, I would not actually choose that as a treatment. And here's the thing. I have female pattern baldness, so I don't know that this would have mattered, but I lived for a long time feeling like I didn't give myself a chance. I didn't give my body a chance to possibly heal. Like, could it heal? Could there be divine intervention to help me heal this hair loss situation? I wouldn't be in the spot that I was in had I waited and allowed myself to try to restabilize and not started treating my hair loss basically within a year of it starting. I don't know if that would have mattered or not, because I do have female pattern baldness. That's a fact. But when you don't even know what you're dealing with, when you don't even know what type of hair loss you're dealing with, it is, to me, a mistake for sure to just start treating your hair loss. Some people are dealing with temporary loss. And I think that, again, I'm not a doctor on this, so just take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but these medications could push you towards having a longer hair loss situation that you may not have had you done nothing, in my opinion. If you're dealing with a temporary hair loss situation, like it's a true telogen effluvium, that is something that can happen when coming off a birth control pill, also postpartum pregnancy, although both of those scenarios can actually kick in your genetic predisposition for female pattern baldness, but both can also be temporary. When you don't know where you fall in that line and you start treating your hair loss like boom, now you could start getting on the hamster wheel of putting yourself in a position that you may not have had to deal with. Now you're messing with your hormones. Now you're possibly kicking in the hair loss that would have resolved itself eventually on its own. Again, I'm not a doctor. This is just my thoughts on it when I think about it logically. So many people are so frantic. They're willing to run out, buy anything they see on their scroll. They don't even know what they're taking. It's labeled hair pills. It's labeled a gummy. They don't even know what's in the ingredients. They don't even probably know one of the active ingredients if they're using a service that you have to talk to a doctor through the consult form. Probably in the hair pills, they're just hair pills to some people. Probably one of those ingredients is oromonoxidil. That's a medication. A medication. You need a prescription for it. That's not just, vitamin C. And some people have negative side effects from oromonoxidil. They can have periorbital swelling. They could have body swelling. Some people could experience heart issues. This is also oromonoxidil, like the topical. It's a blood pressure medication. There are side effects associated with that. Now, some women that even I know do take it and have had success with it. Had this been more around and being prescribed early on in my hair loss, I do feel that I would have actually taken it, to be honest, because I was willing to take anything. You've kind of in the last few years, we're becoming more prescribed, more in vogue, I should say, kind of more in trend to being used. And there are other medications like dutasteride and stuff like that. But oromonoxidil is becoming more commonly prescribed for women. And for some women, they are getting benefit from it. Whether or not that benefit is worth the potential side effects or they're not having side effects is dependent on the individual. Now, some of these side effects, and sometimes all for the individual could be transient, meaning it's going to pass through. Like once you're acclimated to the medication, maybe it's 3 months or 4 months or sooner, it could go away. But for some people, they may never go away. Now you're on a medication, and if you stop taking the medication, you could risk shedding more. So all of that goes into this. There's so much that goes into having to think about what you're going to choose and make it a educated, informed choice, not a hair pill, scroll, gummy, whatever it is, not that. And if you are choosing to go the route of just the hair pills that are being marketed as the thing that's going to help you grow your hair in 6 months, make sure you know what's in the ingredients. Is it oromonoxidil in there? Look up the side effects of that. What are other people saying? If it's saw palmetto, that's not just, an innocuous thing. What are the implications of that? How does it contraindicate to the medications you are already taking? There's so many factors when it comes to treating women's hair loss that I feel like this could go on all day. This is one of the subjects where I feel I screwed myself over, and that if I had a do-over, I would do it over. I don't get a do-over. So I share my experience with it, my regrets with it, the reality of hair loss treatments, and that they are real ones out there. There are real and legitimate ones, and they're going to come from a doctor. And I think a lot of women aren't even aware of what they're taking. There's no magical shampoo for this. There's no magical pill. There's no magical anything. It's female pattern baldness, if that is in fact what you're dealing with. And it's also worth noting, in some cases, this is reversible. In some cases, depending on the woman. Early on, when I started my site, and I was writing, and people would write back and share stories. Maybe this was like 2008, 2009. Somebody had wrote, the individual was wondering if they should get back on the pill because they got off the pill, they were experiencing hair loss, they were thinking I should just get back on the pill because they wanted to combat that. And I said, given what happened to me, if I got a do-over and I was in your position, I would give it time. I would see what happens. Again, this is not what other people should do, but this is what I would do if I could do it over. Maybe 2 years later, she resurfaced, came around, and she wrote me an email. She said that she actually took my advice and did not get back on the pill to combat the shedding, and her hair loss completely stabilized. She does not deal with hair loss anymore. That's what I feel like I kind of maybe robbed myself of, but then I don't know if I did or I didn't, right? Because again, at the end of the day, I did have female pattern baldness that was diagnosed by a dermatologist. But when you're in that zone of you don't even know if you have female pattern baldness and you're just frantic, I don't think it's a good idea to just start throwing the kitchen sink at it and just start buying things off the shelf or buying things online, because you absolutely could potentially make your hair loss worse. And we don't want to do that because living with hair loss is hard, and living with regrets and hair loss is really hard. So that's what I have to say on that topic today. I may expand on it more later. Feel free to share your stories with the medications that you've taken that you feel that helped you or didn't help you, or that you regret taking, and where you are in that space, or if you're considering treatment, or you don't know what to do. I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. So if you found this video helpful, please hit the thumbs up button. Consider subscribing to the channel. Pretty much talk about everything related to women's hair loss, wigs, shaved head life, which is new in my life as of the last couple of years. Just all things related to being a woman living with what I consider to be one of the most devastating afflictions for a woman to go through. And I get it. I see you, and I will talk to you guys soon.